In this episode, once again, we speak to the amazing Marley Major. Marley is the mastermind behind the Party Goddess. Marley is renowned for orchestrating events for elite clientele, including Snoop Dogg, Sofia Vergara, Pierce Brosnan, to name but a few. Her insightful book, But Are You Making Any Money, has made her sought after coach in the small business realm, helping entrepreneurs navigate modern business challenges and trends. Beyond her own writing, Major has contributed to several influential works on leadership and entrepreneurship and is a regular guest on many of the nation's top podcasts. In today's episode, we're speaking to Marley about how to shift from employee to business owner mindset. Let's find out. Welcome, welcome. This is Gull Khan, your money mindset expert. And once again, we have the amazing, we have the wonderful, we have the fantabulous Marley Major. Welcome, Marley.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for coming back, Marley. Marley, we had such a fantastic conversation with you on Friday Feature. We had to have you back for today. And again, once everyone's heard your intro, but once again, please, in your own words, tell everybody what it is that you do.
Sure. So I've got a celebrity-based catering and event planning company in Los Angeles called The Party Goddess. And we are full service. We do every aspect of an event, from food to venue to all the decor, everything. We build the decor. It's quite a production. But many years ago, even though I graduated from Georgetown and got my business degree, many years ago, I realized that I had a very difficult time applying what I learned in business school to my own businesses. And even though I knew it intellectually what I needed to do, I still had a lot of trouble turning a profit. And so I ended up writing a business book to solve my own problems called But Are You Making Any Money? Which is after a question my dad would say, like, that's great that you're doing the Critics' Choice Awards, but, are you making any money? And then followed by how much and how much more can you make? And then it's been a wild ride since then. So I'm a serial entrepreneur at the end of the day, and I've got my hand in a lot of different buckets. But at the end of the day, I love business, and I certainly know how to go it on your own, because the corporate world would not be interested in me. Let's put it that way.
I can vouch that for speaking to your Friday Feature. I can definitely agree with that.
Right.
We're two peas in a pod in that regard. But
Right.
today we're talking about how to finally shift from employee to business owner mindset.
Right.
So can
Right.
you talk to us and describe what is an employee mindset and what's a business owner mindset?
Well, I think the employee mindset is, and I'm going to, no hate mail. I'm going to way overgeneralize. Okay. Just for purposes of discussion.
Of course, because I mean, everyone's different, but yes, of course.
Right. But so the employee mindset to me is the equivalent of, you go in, you are thinking about your day, your life, your whatever, till you get to work. You get to work, you punch the clock, you do whatever it is you're supposed to do in that kind of little capsule of time. And then you're done. And then you go back to whatever it was you were thinking about or working on kind of before the day started, right? Whether it's picking up your kids from school, or whether it's, drama with a friend, et cetera, et cetera. But it's much more, it's like it's in this little contained box. Now, the business owner, to me, I call it the entrepreneurial bleed, right? Where there is no box. It is all consuming all the time. You are just sort of surrounded with your business, no matter how hard you try. Even if you say, oh, I'm going to have a separate office from, my workspace, from my home life, it doesn't matter. It's always on your mind. You're always thinking about, how am I going to make payroll? Even if payroll is just for yourself, you're always thinking, oh shoot, I forgot that XYZ, the property taxes were due for my building, something like that. You never really can get away from it. And from those of the listeners who have kids, you'll understand what I'm talking about, because it's once you have children, it's like they're always somewhere in the back of your mind, right? They say you're only as happy as your saddest child. And I think that's true. So as business owners, really, you're only as happy as like your least performing aspect of the business, whether that's the marketing department, even if the business is just all the marketing department or finance or whatever you have to work on. But you don't get the mental break that you're afforded when you're an employee, because You just don't have those strings attached.
Yeah. So why is it important to shift from an employee to business owner mindset? We'll talk about how to do it afterwards, but talk us through why it's so important to shift the mindset.
Why it's important to shift the mindset is because you've got a whole different level of responsibilities. So when you're the business owner, the buck stops with you.
Yeah.
From the basics, like, you don't want to serve sell a product that's going to injure somebody, or that's going to be anything other than, great for their skin, or whatever the focus of your product is. So you have those kind of components, but then you also have the component of, hey, you don't want to, ship a product that's going to end up poisoning somebody, or, like the far reaching ends. But at the end of the day, the buck always stops with you. The other piece is, it's your reputation. You don't want to ship a product where the label is damaged or it came crushed, because now these days everything is on social media, and it's all. So it's important to ship, because you have to realize it's like, again, I bring up children. It's like going from being a single person to all of a sudden being responsible for somebody else. You can have a 3-month-old baby who's asleep in the other room and is going to be knocked out for hours, right? But that doesn't mean that ever leaves your mind, that you can't just run out for a pizza, right? Whereas, and that's to me the difference between an employee mindset and an owner mindset. One is, you can just at the end of the day tell the boss, ciao, and quit and get another job and start all over again. The consequences for the most part aren't that high. However, when you're the business owner, you literally cannot do that. Now, you might be able to do it and say, fine, I'm going to close my business, but the tail effects are long. And so you can close it, but then those reviews are still going to show up on Yelp. Those returns you're still going to be responsible for. You're still going to be responsible for the, taxes that come from the time you own the business. So you have to make a shift of responsibility of, like, okay, I'm going to put my big girl underpants on now and realize I'm stepping into a different zone.
Yeah. I mean, I would add more to this, the fact that when you do have your business, you are responsible for other people. One of my major shifts that I had was, even when I have a payroll now. Before, I would just pay my consultants, but I was responsible for my consultants.
Correct.
So I knew that they had bills to pay, and they were relying on the money coming out. So when they would invoice me every month, I had to make sure I had to pay it on that time, whether I had money or not. So I had to make sure there was sufficient money in the bank account to be able to pay and meet those invoices. Right. And now with payroll, it's even more, because I've got now 50 people staff that rely upon me, and then they know they this needs to go out. Some are weekly, some are monthly, some are big middle month, some end of month, and that's just the payroll. Then you've got other the PAYE to be paid over here. The tax we deduct, that has to be done. This has to be done, and the service, and then when you say health and safety, that's constantly going through my head. Even though I'm not at the site most of the time, because I'm based in London and my business is in more towards Birmingham. It's more to the fact, okay, I have to make sure that the lighting is good, this is good, that's good. It's constantly on my mind to make sure all the health and safety aspects. Yes, I've got managers and people looking after me, but they bring it to my attention. Then as soon as they bring it to my attention, I have to figure out a solution for it. So it's that taking the responsibility and wearing different hats. I think that's a major shift that you have as an employee. Employee to business owner, because as an employee, you have one hat, you're doing one thing. You may have various roles to play, but you're answerable to someone else. Now you're answerable to yourself and everybody else, because I think a lot of people think, when you become the boss, you are, you can become, you're not answerable to anyone. Actually, you're answerable to your employees and your team members.
Answerable to everybody.
Literally everybody, your suppliers, the taxes, everybody. And I think unless you're willing to take on that responsibility, you should not become a business owner, because having a business is not for the faint-hearted. And then running it properly as well. I mean, this week we've had so many HR issues. Somebody's having a mental health breakdown. Somebody else's wife is has been diagnosed with cancer. Somebody else's wife has is getting older and having blackouts. We've had so many issues come out from HR perspective, that we have to there's only so much we can do. We can give them some support, but we have to give them support. Even if they're not directly, if it's just a partner, it's not them, they are still being impacted. So these are the things you have to think about. Whereas as an employee, you don't. So unless you're willing to take on the responsibility for others,
right,
don't become a business owner. I'm not trying to scare everybody because the benefits are amazing because you
right,
can create something, you make something huge and amazing with your, business owners as business
right,
owners. But
right.
I think the freedom you have as a business owner is far greater than being an employee. But the
Absolutely. And
responsibility comes more as well.
well, it's a couple things. One, you mentioned, put the hat, right? Well, as an
Yeah.
employee, you can take the hat and you can put it back on the shelf, and somebody else can be hired by that
Yes.
company and pick it up and take
Yes.
that hat, right?
Yeah.
When you've got a hat, when the hat that you wear when you're a business owner is, you have 9 hats stacked like a clown on
Literally,
top, and
literally
it's
on top of each other.
literally
Yeah. Yeah.
right. And you knock yourself out. You can take it out, you can put it on a shelf, but you're still responsible for the shelf,
Yeah.
right? Until XYZ is done. And you brought up another great point about the level of responsibility, right? We are responsible. I think sometimes, even if we don't, we know our employees, and even if we don't know that, this one is a grandmother that's in the, might not know every single detail, but somehow we still feel it, right? At the
Yeah.
end of the day, I mean, and we've talked about paying ourselves first and all these important things with starting your own business. But listen, let's face it, at the end of the day, if it's payroll due and your paycheck or my paycheck has to wait a couple days, it's
You
probably
wait.
going to
Yeah.
wait a couple
Yeah.
days,
Yes.
right? And to me, at the end of the day, it's like that's where the buck stops.
Yeah.
It's reverse. Like when it comes to being paid, the team goes first.
Yeah.
When it comes to who's responsible, I'm always at the end of the bus, right? No matter what. So
Yeah.
there are amazing components about it. But in our last interview, you mentioned something about risk analysis, right?
Yeah.
And we were joking that that's what's very much lacking. But I think, to your point, of we're not trying to scare anybody, but take a second. It's worth taking a second and doing a little bit of risk analysis. Now, don't have that paralyze you to the point where you say, "Oh my God, I listened to this podcast and I'm not starting a business because I'm too afraid." No. But how about if you just listen to the podcast and you say, "I'm going to go through a few other things of what are the consequences if I leave my job and my 401k and I don't have health insurance and blah, blah, blah." So it's just about just taking a pause
Yeah.
and then proceeding.
Yeah. I mean, the way I see it, what I want for myself, I want for my entire team. So as a business owner, one of the biggest benefits you get to have is you get to create the culture of your company. So when I walked in, I unfortunately I inherited a lot of problems in the company that I bought. Everything you could possibly do wrong, I did wrong, by the way.
Yeah.
Everything you could do wrong, I've done it.
Then we're in a
Right.
party of two. There you
Yeah.
go.
So,
Yeah.
so when buying the company, when I bought the company, and then I kept it, it was just lots of learning experience.
Right.
But what we've done over the last year, and one of the biggest compliments I get as the CEO is everybody has made a comment how things have improved so much. The culture has improved so much. We pay them more, we treat them better, they're happier, and we're giving them more benefits and so forth. And I'm constantly working to see how can we improve. Obviously, I'm sort of limited by the amount of finances available to me.
Sure.
But we are investing back in the company. We are saying how we can, improve the tooling, improve the machinery. Okay, we can't buy the machinery yet. Okay, let's work out what we need. How can we buy it? And we've been doing this constantly. Okay, what can we buy? What can we do? What can we buy? What can we do? How can we improve? How can we help? We need to hire more people. There's been a constant work on improving the culture in the environment and the number of people doing the particular role. And some obviously letting go of some people, bringing in more people.
Right.
And it's been a never-ending game. We're still listening with HR, but I got to change it. So I was instrumental in changing it. So yes, I give the credit entirely to my general manager and the rest of my senior management team. They're amazing. They're the ones who are doing it. But
you can't give it entirely to them. I don't. But anyway,
it has to start with me, doesn't it? Because I'm the one who's encouraging it. We don't use the word employee in that company. I'm really against it. We use team members, and I make sure that every single person, doesn't matter if someone who's doing it as an intern, someone's doing it starting out, even someone who's a cleaner. He's a vital member of the team, and he's a team member. He has a particular role to play. He may not play the same role as a senior engineer, but he has his role to play. And without him, we won't have clean toilets. Simple as that. So that's an environment gone wrong. So
Right.
every single person is valuable in the team. And this has filtered through so well that everyone understands the term that we never use the word employees. It's always team members, team members, team members.
Right.
And the managers are there to support their team members, not to boss them around and
Right.
encourage them. And this has gone so well that
Right.
I'm blessed with really amazing senior management team. They do follow those, those sort of principles so well, and
Mhm.
that's filtered down to the the seniors at the the welding bays and we were primarily a tube bending and fabrication company, and even our tube benders. So we've got people of all walks of life, and some of them are very, I always say that, the people down the pub, very boisterous
Yeah.
and that kind of,
Yeah.
the kind of mentality.
A little
But they,
rougher.
yeah, a little rough around the edges, you can say. But they have adopted that mentality and they've gone in. But that's because and that I will take credit for, because I was able to come in and do a complete shift on the kind of environment that was there. People are complaining, people are upset, people da da da. And we've changed that, where people are actually
Right.
happy to come into work. But as a business owner, that's the privilege that you have. You can create that. You can create the kind of environment that you want.
And I think that's a big piece of the difference is that's the currency as a business owner. One of the
Yeah.
currencies as a business owner you have to trade on, right?
Yeah.
Because you are saddled with so many other things. So one of the sort of the 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 good feelings that you have to be able to trade on are saying to yourself, hey, listen, I do have a sense of satisfaction because
Yeah.
I was able to drive change with the culture and I was able to make it so that, people wanted to come to work. And sometimes, well, not sometimes, but a lot of times you have very dark, defeating days, whether you're
Oh,
taking on a new company, whether you're starting a new company. I mean, likening if you're doing a turnaround with a company, right? You've inherited all this stuff. If you're starting a company, it's a blank slate and you're about to create, your own messes. But both positions are ones where if you're any good at what you do, you are shining a light on yourself, right? And
yeah.
you're shining a light on every aspect of what you do. And you're maybe not always second guessing it, but you're always thinking, could I have done this better, stronger, faster? I don't know any CEO out there
Hmm.
or any even just small business owner, mom and pop shop who doesn't say, I should have done that differently. Or yeah, I should have uh, closed on this day and given this, the team members this time off. Or you're just always second guessing. There is
Yeah.
always something where you're saying to yourself, should I have done that differently? And I don't, and as an employee or as a team member of a company, you don't have that level of responsibility. You can
No.
assume it, but it's not, at the end of the day, it is not yours.
No. I mean, what's another major way that we can shift our mindset from an employee to a business owner? What are the positive aspects that we need to adopt as well? Because one of the negative ones I've noticed with people when they come to me and they are now are shifting from being an employee to business owners is they don't adopt the positive sides either. They are working 24/7. So one of the
Right.
things as an employee, you are responsible for doing a particular role and only you do it. Whereas an employer, you can delegate the task and
Right.
they find it really difficult. So talk us through that. What are the positive aspects that we should adopt, but we don't?
There are a million positive aspects. Otherwise, I wouldn't, have been doing this so long and be a serial entrepreneur like you, right?
Mm,
So I think that's super important to focus on. I think one piece is, are you willing to accept the responsibility? And I almost think that that's kind of a crazy question, right? Because I think in your gut if you are or you're not. You
yeah.
just know. Like for the two of us, we probably just love to go in and like we're happy to go in and make changes and take
Yeah.
charge. Like that's what it's like cleaning out a closet to me. I feel super excited and energized. But it's like anything else in life, you have to focus on what is it that you want,
Yeah.
what are the steps you're going to take to get there, and then you start taking those steps and then you course correct. But in that course correction process and in that evaluation process is saying, am I enjoying the this and this of why I got into my own business in the first place? And it's going to be
Mm,
different for everybody. Maybe
yeah.
you got into your own business because you wanted to have your own space that you could decorate and be creative and all that stuff while still running your business. Okay, so are you tending to that environment? Does it bring you joy when you walk in your own office, whether it's your home office or not? Or Did you start your own business because you wanted to be able to have the flexibility? Now we all know you're still going to work the hours, right? So when people say, "Oh, but the boss can take off at whatever to go get a manicure," sure, I can take off at 2 o'clock to go get a manicure and pedicure. But if I'm off from 2 to 4, that just means that I'm probably going to work 8 to 10, right?
In the
I mean,
evening. Yeah, of course,
the
yeah.
chicken, the
Mm,
chickens always come home to roost. But it is very valuable for me to
mm,
be able to leave when I want. So I might
yeah.
still have to make up the work, right? But it's when I want. And I think that analysis and that course correction is crucial. It's
Mm,
I'm going to go from an employee to being a business owner for the following reasons. Boom, boom, boom. And as long as I make X amount of money and I'm working X amount of time, this is what I'm after. But you have to keep checking in with yourself. It's like it's like a plane. I mean, you can't take you could put it on autopilot, but that only goes so far, right? You
no,
have to keep coming back to what's your goal. And then
exactly.
in our own businesses, you have, of course, financial goals. That's what most of us talk about, right? And
Mm,
maybe we have social media goals, how many followers and how much engagement. But as a business owner, a huge thing to focus on is what are the goals for yourself, your lifestyle, your family, your whatever it is going to be, and then continuously measuring yourself against not just the social media goals and the financial goals, but those other sort of less concrete goals.
mm,
Like if you just are doing your little analysis and you're like, yeah, well, guess what? I worked the last 6 out of every single weekend and I'm exhausted and I haven't had my nails done and I'm getting sick. That's one thing. But maybe you're going to say, yeah, I worked the last 6 weekends because I didn't really care. My husband was working too. But I was thrilled because I was off Monday and Tuesday and I got to do XYZ with my kids. Fine. Then it's working. But it's that constant, what was the goal? And
mm,
how is it working? And then how do you course correct? And the other piece too is you don't have to throw the baby out with the bathwater, right? I think
mm,
sometimes we go from an employee to the business owner and we think it's all wrong, right? Like, or we have a frustrating day, or we something isn't going as planned, and we think it's the whole department, the whole this is wrong. Is it, or is it just this piece? Is it the communication between this department and that department? Might be significant, but it's not the whole thing,
yeah.
right? So I think that's the other piece to focus on. But there are, to me, business ownership is freedom,
Yeah.
and we just have to be good stewards of that. Otherwise,
I think I agree with you, and I'm going to add, I think you need to know very clearly in your head why you want to have a business.
correct.
So I remember when I first started, and I had no option. I had to go into the business because I wasn't ready. So my background is a lawyer, and I wasn't when I separated from my ex-husband. It was he literally left me in the lurch. So because I was divorcing him, he wasn't giving me any from being fully financially
Right.
dependent on him.
Mm-hmm.
So the day I found out, it was the 31st of August, something like that. And the very next day was the beginning of the month, and he's supposed to pay money. He gave me nothing. He gave me absolutely nothing. The idea was you either accept my girlfriend and allow me to have a second wife, or I don't give you anything, that kind of scenario. So it was
Right.
basically financial abuse and financial blackmail. And I told him to hell with that. I'm not accepting, go to hell.
Yeah.
And I remember dealing with that, and the initial months was going, pawning my gold and whatever else and selling everything
Right.
I possibly could and all my saving one, whatever. That took me
Right.
the process of a year or something.
Right.
But I did eventually had to, start work. And my dad at the time said to me, go back to, law because that's all you knew. That's all I knew was, law.
Right.
And I was a corporate lawyer before. And I remember when I was young and I was single and I was doing 78 hours, it was fine. It was okay. There's no issue because I'm making lots of money, right? I
Right.
spent a lot of money, which was, I didn't know much about money. So I wasted it
Right.
all. I wish I saved more,
Like
but I
get
did
that.
wasted it all.
Yep.
So that's all I knew. But I knew that money would be good and I could, but I would have to start because I'd taken, by then it would be a 10-year, 10-year break. I have to start from scratch, from the bottom. I could build myself up because I knew I all those confident I can build myself up. But I had two kids at the time, a 9-year-old and a 5-year-old. They were already not seeing the dad. He was too involved with his,
Yeah.
girlfriend and shenanigans and all that stuff at the time. So they would not even see the mother. They would all see they would have to get a nanny. I have no option but to get a full-time nanny to look after
Right.
the kids while I went to work. And I thought, I looked at the numbers and I thought, the amount of money I'd make, I'd be spending at least 40% of that on the nanny,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
So what am I doing? What's the point of
Right.
me slaving away? My kids won't see me. And this literally, I said then I made a practical reason of, okay, what can I do?
Right.
And the safeties, the social safety security was,
Right.
well, but you're a lawyer, you can get a job, you can do well, da, 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 da.
That's yeah, but
And it,
that's not what happens in your head. Yeah.
well, Queen, that was my dad as well. That's the voice in the head of
Right.
my dad, my
Right.
father, who doesn't really know me because he didn't bring me up, so he doesn't understand my character as such, to be
Right.
honest, right?
Right.
But that was what he said. My brother also said to me, well, what are you gonna do? Da, 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 da. And I sat down, very practically worked out, okay, that's the matter. If I go and work there, this is the amount of money I can make. And like, yes, I can, the next couple of years, I can go up to this level and probably beyond, because I knew I'm a damn good, I'm really focused. I'm focused, and I'm the best. So I knew getting into the corporate level and getting to the top level would be 4 or 5 years and I'd be at the top. So making, a couple of multiple six figures would be within my reach. I knew I could do it. But at what expense? Because my
Mhm.
9-year-old, my 5-year-old would not see their mother. So that's what,
Right.
and 40% of my income would at least would go on the childcare, on nannies. Then I think, okay, what's the other option? Okay, up to that point, I had dabbled in loads of different businesses, but bombed all of them. So this is not
Right.
bad. I had been doing various businesses, tried various things when I was still, when I was still married. Because my husband at the time was a business owner, and I was trying to do something. I bombed every single one. Every single one. So apparently he said to me, I was terrible at business. I should never think about running a business. So I thought, oh, nothing's worked so far. Can I even do it? So I'm just
Right.
only just building the picture of when I started my business, my previous experience of running a business was a total disaster. And the
Right.
most one was we started a care home business, and I invested £100,000 of our savings, which was supposed to buy a house. I put it in there and it bombed. We lost it.
Right.
Okay. So
Right.
I had failed miserably. But guess what? Motivation. I'm the 5-year and 9-year-old. So I set up a coaching business because I thought
Mm-hmm.
I was good at this. And I thought, well, I understand money. I think I understand money, but I can help people. And that's where the dream started. Okay. Then the sole motivation was, I want to be around my 5-year-old and 9-year-old. That's it.
Right.
And that was
Right.
in 2017. And now in 2024, I have multiple businesses, multiple seven figures, and I've done exceptionally well. So,
Right.
but the motivation was key. That's what I'm trying to get at. And where I started was because I did not want my 5-year-old and my 9-year-old to be looked after by nannies and for them not to see their dad or their mother. So the motivation is key as far as I'm concerned.
The motivation is key, absolutely, to not only to start but to sustain you. And
Yes.
in those dark days when you're sitting there going, oh my gosh, how am I going to do this? Or I don't know about you, but for me as a mom, I feel like I was never in the right place. If I was doing something with my kids at the Christmas pageant, somebody was texting me from the office and I should have been over here doing so. No matter what, I just felt like it somewhere somebody wasn't happy, right?
Yeah. Yeah. You're,
And
you're, you're always trying to pull you in different directions, aren't
oh,
you? Yeah.
right, right. And so, but the motivation is key. It's kind of, you have to keep coming back to that. Like, well, this is why I'm doing it. And even when, I would have during COVID, for example, I was helping my dad's company with. I went in for sort of 4 days to kind of fix this database thing. Of course, COVID hits a couple weeks later. I don't leave for, I don't know, 4 years later or something. I kind of am still in there. And as many times as I've like tried to throw up my hands and feel sorry for myself and like, oh, I want to get out of this component and I want to go back to doing this other piece. The piece that I come back to, like the motivation is, A, putting your kids through college, etc. But B is, well, if that's what my dad and the company and whatever needs, then that's why you're going to do it, right? You
Yeah.
you put up, and so you have to have that motivation and the goal like right in front of your face. You have to be able to visualize it, even if
Yeah.
just visualize, I don't want to say just, but even if visualizing it means, you visualize your two smiling faces of your kids. You go, okay, one more time I can do it. Okay, one more time I can do it. And but the other thing that I think is important too is to keep checking back in and
Mhm.
saying, is my motivation still there? Because let's say it's not for kids. Let's say your motivation is because, I don't know, you want freedom to do XYZ, right? And then later that changes. But I think as business owners, sometimes where we go off track is the original reason we started our businesses. And then life happens, things change, and we get to this point where we're like, how did I get here? And we forget to say, wait a second, is here where I want to be? And maybe it is, but I think that evaluation is crucial to having a successful process. And even as somebody's making the transition, like you're making a transition from working for somebody to having your own company. Remember, it's still not the end of the world. You could, even if you quit your job and say, I'm going to start my company, and you start doing it, and 3 months later, you're like, I'm not cut out for this. I thought I had the motivation. I thought I wanted this and that, and it's not working. Fine. As I think both of us have said ad nauseum, we fail continuously. There's no person, I don't know how many billionaire clients I have and friends and everything. All of them face plant. It might not be publicly, but they all face plant. That's the cost of doing business. Yeah. And so I think if you're continuously evaluating where you are and if it's working, and you're willing to say, okay, I made the wrong leap. There is nothing wrong with making the wrong leap, right? Make a change.
Yeah. I think the one thing that I want to add to this is, as long as you know your why, it doesn't matter what it is, I think you need to come back to it frequently, and then also have the courage to face the consequences. You're going to make, I think that this idea that everything you do is going to be a success is a complete falsity. That's never going to happen. You're going to fail. So you might as well fail fast, right? So you're going to fail. You're going to make really stupid mistakes. You're going to hire the wrong people. You're going to get the wrong partners. You're going to trust the wrong people. And I think especially if you're an honest person, you end up trusting the wrong people a lot more, because you don't think you would ever betray someone. So you think you project that positivity onto the other people, and you don't realize they're the crocodiles, right?
Quote, who would do that?
Well, exactly.
Who would do that is a lot of the population are the who would do that, right? They're right.
I mean, I've suffered so much because of it, because I walk around with rose-tinted glass thinking everyone's wonderful and everything's lovely and everyone's honest. And that's not the case. I'm a bit more wary, a bit more cautious now. Hence the risk assessment comes in.
Right, the risk assessment. I love the risk assessment. I'm forever going to think about you as far as my risk assessments and how I need to continue to improve.
But it's still, if I look at my life, yes, I've had my downturns. Yes, I've fallen flat on my face. Yes, we've, had major scars left from bruises, which shouldn't have occurred in the first place if I had done my risk assessment. Yet, I'm still standing, I'm still doing well, and the business is thriving, and it's doing fabulously well. And I mean, one of the businesses that I was looking to buy, because we were looking to expand and buy additional businesses, this blew me away. This, after months of negotiation, we signed heads of terms. We were literally 2 weeks away from completing, and I get an email from them, not even a phone call, an email from them demanding more money. They were demanding 40% more money. I'm like, huh? What? How? Why?
Yeah. On what planet does that work?
Exactly. And on what basis? Like, I was giving them exactly what they accountant had valued the company at. Like, I looked at it and they find it's not what I want. We can come to a conclusion. We can do it this way. We did it, some as an earn out, some as an initial payment, some as an earn out. So they get what they want. Right. Yet, so I've given them what they want, even though my valuation is lower compared to the accountant's valuation. And now you want to add 40% on top of that? Like, how does that work without negotiation? And the whole conversation fell through. And we'd wasted money on accounts, obviously legal DDs. Lesson learned. Fell flat on my face. Fair enough. Didn't work. And I've just dusted myself, okay, next. So I think I'm just saying that made me learn that greed will take over. And they've made it. I don't know if they're going to sell to somebody else, whatever. They come back to me, they were going to have to renegotiate, and we have the terms added in, especially to cover my legal and my accounting costs next time, and we will deduct the initial costs as well. So I don't know if they will come back, but if they do, that's something that I'm going to have to work at. But it's a lesson learned, and next time I do have another heads of terms signed, that clause will be added now saying if you increase the price or if you don't adhere to these terms and you want different terms of the sale, you're going to be responsible for my legal and my accounting costs, which cost anywhere from 15 to 20,000. That's a hit that we had to
Right.
take because lesson learned.
Well, and tying it back to something that was sort of at the very beginning of this conversation was where you were saying, hey, listen, when you were deciding, were you going to go back to being a lawyer and then, your childcare costs, let's say we're going to be 40% or whatever. I mean, in a very black and white way, you could say that those are the cost of doing business, right?
It's
So
a
if you
cost of
want
doing
to,
business.
right, you want to go back into the corporate world, then you're going to have to spend, let's face it, X amount for the nannies, and you're going to have to spend X amount on dry cleaning and X amount on those are the costs of doing business, period. Now, the other thing too is that that's why people who aren't in business a lot of times will say, "Oh, that company is making so much money. They produce this product for 50 cents and they sell it for $50." Right, but we're not only talking about cost of goods sold. You're not only talking about the steel and the plastic and the whatever that went into the product. You are talking about exactly what you're saying, taking that whole failed component, right, and absorbing it into the company and dividing it by the number of widgets. And these things are as you're saying, lesson learned. And what I'm thinking also is, yes, lesson learned. And then I'm thinking on that one, but there's another train coming, right? Like, so it's kind of like it just as soon as I feel like I've got one thing handled, sometimes you feel like you're playing whack-a-mole, right? Where you're like, bam, 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 bam. And you feel like, oh my gosh, I've got, 10,000 things. Like, is this ever going to stop? And then all of a sudden it stops and you're like, okay, that doesn't mean the gopher isn't coming back up again. It just, but it means I'm much better prepared, right? And
absolutely.
And so in your case, and that's why contracts get longer, and that's why we have boundaries and these things, is because we've learned our lessons, and that's the difference between being somebody I think who is suited to going from being an employee to being a business owner, is that we say to ourselves, "Oh, I made that mistake, and sure, I'm going to pay for it, but I'm not going to make it again."
100%.
And you keep learning from it, and you keep realizing, I'm not going to make it again, and I'm going to make a little more money next time, and I'm going to make a little more money next time. And that's why I think the average, I don't know, years ago, the statistic was the average millionaire went bankrupt like 2.1 times or something. I think now it's even higher, because you have to, it's just the law of averages. There are enough snakes out there. There are enough pitfalls there. We cannot know all these things, but I think that goes back to the risk analysis of don't be right out the gate betting on a $10 million company when you're an employee. Start with something that's more manageable. So if your chips get all taken off the table, you're not destitute. I think that's the 100%. Big piece, is that how many chips can you get taken off the table at any given time? Exactly. And I think if we're always kind of asking ourselves that, and we're comfortable with the answer, then you keep proceeding and you keep getting better at poker.
Yeah, I agree. I'm just going to wrap this up and say, I definitely agree. I think, but you need to be a business owner, and this is one of the biggest things, is that having a business mindset is being ready for the roller coaster ride. There Absolutely. Are ups, the highs are highs, but the lows are lows. And as a business owner, I don't have any partners, so I'm a lone wolf. I really do operate as a lone. I think people like you and I would have to operate as a lone wolf because of the way we operate.
Could and you I imagine? Don't like, they'd be like, no, hell no, am I signing off on that?
Yeah. So yes, exactly. So I don't like being answerable to anybody. I want to make my decisions and do it myself. And I don't like the knickknacks from other people. But that also means I'm very lonely. I have to make the decisions. I can take advice from my management team. I can take advice from people around me with with experience, like accountants and lawyers, etc. But in the end of the day, I have to make the decision and I have to be responsible for it. So the success we've achieved, I always give that to my team, because my team's amazing. I wouldn't be anywhere without them. But the failures are mine and mine alone, and they're because of my decisions. So you need to come to business with that mindset where your shoulders have to be strong enough and broad enough to handle all the failures, and you will have enough of those. Let's just be very real about it. But at the same time, you need to be humble enough to the success you receive to allocate to the right quarters, which is your team. And they are the ones who are responsible for helping, yes, you succeed, but because of their hard work, and allocate to them. So as a business owner, you really have to give the success and share that with the team, but have the ability to take on the responsibility for the downfalls. But you have to do it, both of them. And I think this is very important.
Yeah, and it's important to just to when you're in the middle of working on something and on failing on something, and that you realize it's not the end of the world. I don't know. I mean, for me at least, so many things feel like I blew it and it's game over. It's very rarely game over, right? It isn't. And something else is going to come back up and get you down. But I think going right back to the whole point of the podcast being mindset, right? I remember in college, when you have finals coming up, sometimes you're kind of, you're off or you have one final left. And so you go out the night before and then, you're a little bit tired and you can get away with that when you're 20 years old. But ideally you set yourself up so that you've had enough sleep, et cetera, before you study for your finals. And then, we can get sick after the finals, right? But you're prepared to be exhausted and take all that on. So I think it's going into it like that also is being prepared and just knowing there is going to be something coming around the curve, right? And as long as you know always to anticipate that as much as you can, and not get too comfortable, right? And I always have had my best doses of humble pie when things start sailing right along, and that's when I say, "Oh, good, I'm on fire. I am so good at this." And bam, that's
Oh, yeah.
when the meteor strikes.
Mm.
So remember the stuff that I've grown through. I can't tell you anything significant that came out of huge wins. It has always been because, oh, well, I will never do that again. Right. Or
But yeah,
I will.
yeah. Success, it doesn't teach you anything. Failures teach you
Oh,
experiences, which allows
yeah.
you to be successful. I completely agree. So on that note, we're going to wrap this up. I completely agree with that. I think this has been a fabulous conversation, well worth the time, because I think everyone who has a desire for business should go on and have a business, but you
Yeah.
need to come to this with an open mindset and be ready to shift your mindset from an employee to a business owner, because you will have to do this shift and there are many things to learn, and you have to be ready for the downturns, the failures. There are no failures. I think there are just lessons, but
Right.
you
Right.
have to be prepared for that. So on that note, let's wrap up. So Marley, tell us, how can we connect with you? Where can we find you on the internet?
Well, the easiest way is to go to Instagram. Of course, you can go to, we have our business Instagram is at the Profit Goddess, or you can go to theprofitgoddess.com and check us out there. But just keep in mind that we all fail and that's part of the process. And if you decide to go into your own business and you fail, then you're just one of us.
Absolutely, 100%. So if you're listening to us on the podcast, the links for Marley would be on the show notes. And if you're watching on YouTube, then down below in the description section, you'll find the links for Marley to go check her out and see how she can help you bring profit into your business. Thank you so much for today, Marley. It's been, once again, a fabulous conversation.
Thanks for having me. I loved it.
And thank you for listening to me and Marley today. I will be back with another amazing guest, finding out how you and I can build a better business. Until the next time we meet, this is Gull Khan signing off. Take care and bye for now.